This story starts in a shady operating theater, where two shady surgeons are running experiments on two living people who seem utterly injured under the dim, flickering lights with a faint hum of machines in the background. The surgeons inject both test subjects with a strange green liquid, and soon enough, the male test subject begins to suffer, with blood pouring out from every orifice onto the cold, sterile tiles stained with crimson streaks. Eventually, whatever the surgeons injected into the poor guy proves too much to handle, and both test subjects supposedly die right there amidst the eerie silence broken only by the drip of leaking pipes. One surgeon finally decides to give up on their research, realizing that after sacrificing so many people, all that awaited them was one failure after another in this grim, shadow-filled room cluttered with discarded tools. He knows from the start that this research had no real future. And before leaving, he makes it abundantly clear that he won't be part of it anymore, as his voice echoes off the cold, concrete walls. Dr. Shin seems to be the only person who doesn't believe their efforts have been futile as far as he's concerned in this stark, antiseptic space with a lingering smell of chemicals. The people they used for the test were always supposed to die in a day or two, so it doesn't matter if they ended up dying a day early under the harsh glow of the overhead lights, casting long shadows. As they contributed to the greater good of humanity, Shin then instructs his junior to leave the operating theater, as he plans to take care of the bodies himself on the slick, blood-smeared floor surrounded by scattered medical supplies. The junior doesn't say another word and leaves quietly, and Shin, meanwhile, is still fixated on the belief in the dim corner, where the air feels thick with tension, that this research will eventually succeed. He's certain the only thing holding it back is the lack of proper test subjects in this cramped, eerie chamber buzzing with faint noise. He knows without a doubt that the right subject for this experiment is still out there. And now let's cut to the main hero of this story, in a lively town with bustling streets and distant chatter. His name is Kang Yuan, and his friend is Jin Min Hyung. These two work at a funeral home taking care of dead bodies. And after goofing around and eating in a small cluttered break room with the faint smell of coffee lingering, they decide to head to the hospital to claim the bodies. Once they arrive in the hospital, Yuan shows his business card to the attendant, at the counter behind a polished glass partition under bright lights, and introduces himself as Kang Yuan from Hanwell Funeral Services. He had received a call about patients over a crackling phone line in the quiet morning who passed away early that morning. His friend Young also joins him after stepping away for a quick bathroom break down a narrow tiled hallway with echoing footsteps. Soon enough, they find themselves in the operating theater. The bodies they are there to claim just happen to be the same ones on stark silver tables, under the harsh white glare of surgical lights the surgeons were using for their experiments. Young confirms that the victims appeared to be a father and daughter, and the report states they died in a car accident on a crumpled sheet of paper stained with coffee rings. But one thing doesn't make sense to Yehuan. While the father's body is in bad shape, the girl's body is almost spotless in the cold, still air of the room with a faint antiseptic scent. Aside from a wound on her arm, there are no signs of any surgeries performed. His friend reminds him. They're not forensic experts in the hushed, tense atmosphere, so they should stop worrying about things they shouldn't and focus on claiming the bodies. Juan decides to take a look inside the girl's mouth under the glaring, unyielding lights, and as he's doing so, he suddenly cuts his finger on her broken tooth. Anyhow, the next step is to move the bodies as they start moving the father's body first across the slick, blood-streaked floor. Juan suddenly notices that the wound on the girl's hand has disappeared, and of course this shocks him like nothing else, in the eerie, shadow-filled corner of the room. He points out the healed wound to his friend, but before they can discuss it further, Yi Huan is struck by a sharp stinging pain that causes him to collapse onto the hard, unforgiving tiles. His friend grows worried and rushes over to support him. And meanwhile, Yuan's condition only worsens. He's suddenly hit with immense and unbearable pain in the chaotic, equipment-strewn room that makes him scream at the top of his lungs. It seems some infection has entered his bloodstream through the cut from the girl's broken tooth under the flickering, ominous ceiling lights. His heart feels like it's going to explode, and his entire body is so hot that it feels like he's being burned alive in the stifling, oppressive heat of the enclosed space. He can sense he's dying if this pain keeps up, and eventually he loses consciousness, leaving his worried friend crying like a child in the grim, blood-soaked corner near a rusted gurney. Meanwhile, the girl begins to twitch and move, and a while later Juan opens his eyes. He has no idea what's going on in the strange, silent chaos with distant echoes of banging doors. He notices the so-called dead girl banging her head against the door, and naturally Juan is terrified to see the dead girl on her feet. As if that's not horrifying enough, in the dark, twisted haze of the wrecked theater, he notices his friend's mangled, bloody body on the ground. Juan recoils in fear, panic seizing his heart and mind, and for some reason his hands are covered in blood as well, under the faint buzzing lights casting eerie shadows. He then notices the girl looking at him, and they lock eyes for a moment, but she just twirls around and continues her creepy head banging against the dented, heavy door. After staring at his friend's dead body, Yuhuan looks back at his blood-stained hands, and the sweet aroma of the blood filling the room is oddly enticing in the thick, coppery air swirling around him. The overwhelming stench of blood fills his nostrils, spreading across his tongue, and the scene before him feels twisted and surreal in the warped, flickering glow of the shattered lights. Suddenly, Yi Huan notices his supposed dead friend groaning, and seeing this, he makes a desperate effort to wake him up. But there's no response. His friend seems to be deep in unconsciousness, on the cold, sticky floor littered with debris. Yi Huan decides to take him with him, believing he might survive if he gets him the treatment he needs, and it looks like the entire hospital is in shambles, with broken glass crunching underfoot and blood smeared on every surface. Everywhere is stained with blood, and there's no one in sight. And we then see only an old man crying in the corner while a girl lies dead nearby on the cracked, blood-soaked floor under a flickering exit sign. The old man's face is glistening with sweat from the tension consuming his mind, and he's sure that no one is coming to save them in this desolate, echoing ruin filled with the stench of decay. The world outside this hospital is beyond saving. The chaos and destruction spill into every corner, and the air is thick with the stench of decay. Now he curses whoever might have caused this madness. Suddenly he notices the secretary flinching, her hand trembling, as she clutches a clipboard. Without thinking, he starts running out of the room, certain that if he stays, he'll die an unwanted death. Grabbing a golf club from the corner, he steels himself and ventures out of the room, desperate to leave the hospital for good. The hallway is dimly lit, the walls cracked, and the flickering fluorescent lights create an eerie atmosphere. We cut back to the operating room. Yuan has finished putting his friend on a stretcher and is ready to take him to get treated. But he feels weak and sluggish, as if the ground beneath him is shifting. His stomach hurts, twisting like it's empty, even though he clearly remembers having eaten lunch earlier. The pain isn't from hunger, it's from something else, something darker. His insides seem to ache for blood. He steels himself again and starts pushing his friend's stretcher. As he opens the door and steps outside, the bright sunlight stabs at his eyes, a stark contrast to the dark, confined interior of the hospital. He comes across the scared old man holding a golf club. The old man's face is pale, his knuckles white from gripping the club tightly, his fear palpable. He's a blessing for Yuan. He quickly shouts for help, asking the doctor to treat his injured friend. Just then, the headbanging zombie girl zips past Yuan, running straight toward the old man, like a hungry and bloodthirsty monster. The old man recoils in fear, his body shaking as the zombie closes in. More zombies emerge from another room and begin feasting on him, the grotesque sounds of tearing flesh echoing in the hallway. Yuan can do nothing but tremble as he stands there, witnessing this horrific scene, unable to turn away. His friend, whom he was trying to rescue, stands up on his own feet. He walks toward the other zombies, who are happily devouring the old man. When he reaches them, he sits down and sinks his teeth into the old man's head, joining the gruesome, macabre feast. Yu Huang doesn't waste a second and hides behind the wall, feeling a cold sweat form on his brow. He reflects on how his once goofy friend has now become this brainless zombie. For a moment, Yu Huang thinks he must be dreaming, because whatever is happening can't be real. He closes his eyes, trying to concentrate, wishing for this nightmare to end, but it's no use. It's certainly not a dream. Then he notices something chilling. It's April 29th, not the 24th as he thought. If he's understanding this correctly, he's lost consciousness for 5 whole days. He quickly reaches for his phone and confirms that it's indeed April 29th. His phone is filled with missed calls and unread text messages from his sister Nuna. In the messages, she expresses concern about his well-being and pleads with him not to go outside, begging him to stay alive. His heart sinks as his phone dies, and with it, any connection to the world outside. While Yuan has no idea what's going on, that's not an excuse to sit there and do nothing. If he wants to save Nuna and Minhee, he has to leave the hospital at all costs. Meanwhile, in a random convenience store, we see a girl crying in a quiet corner, her sobs echoing through the empty aisles. The area outside is infested with mindless zombies hungry for blood, so all she can do is pray for a savior to come. We cut back to Yi Huan, who sprints down the hospital corridor and then the stairs, his breath ragged as he pushes forward. As he's descending, he locks eyes with the headbanging zombie girl, but eventually he makes it outside, his feet pounding the ground in haste. He's exhausted, and the hunger is overwhelming him now. He doesn't have time to stop, but his body betrays him. After being knocked out for several days, it's natural to feel hungry. He's so hungry that he might collapse, so he decides to find food first. His eyes scan the area, spotting a convenience store nearby. Without a second thought, he enters the abandoned store, the door creaking open in protest. Inside, the familiar shelves and aisles look almost normal, except for the eerie silence. Yuan starts devouring burgers and soda like there's no tomorrow. The food is cold, stale, and likely spoiled, but he doesn't care. After finishing his meal, he finally feels satisfied. But then something strange occurs. He didn't even stop to consider whether the food was safe to eat. Moreover, he usually hated convenience store food, so it's odd that he's so desperate for it now. His eyes suddenly fill with tears as he remembers his friend, who is now a literal zombie. He recalls how his friend had always been curious about the existence of zombies, but now the poor guy has become one himself. As Yuan is drowning in sorrow over the loss of his friend, he suddenly notices commotion coming from a nearby storage room. Cautiously, he approaches the room and enters. Inside, he sees the girl we saw earlier, her face pale and filled with terror, as she cries out loudly, thinking a zombie is creeping up on her. Overcome with fear, she finally dares to look back, only to find Yuan standing there, forcing a smile on his face as he offers to help. Outside, a zombie is making its way toward the convenience store, its guttural growl reverberating through the building. Yuan gathers some edible items and offers them to the hungry girl, who devours the food with desperate urgency, as though she hasn't eaten in days. Seeing how fast she's eating, Yuan suggests she slow down, warning her that she might upset her stomach. The girl, finally feeling satisfied after eating and drinking some water, thanks him, saying she feels much better. Out of sheer curiosity, she asks him how he managed to get inside, which catches him off guard. He explains that he was so hungry he thought he needed to eat something, so he rushed into the convenience store. Of course, his explanation doesn't seem very convincing, especially considering how the place outside is overrun with mindless zombies. Suddenly, Yuan asks if he can find anything to charge his phone. She reminds him about the power banks in the store. Yuan decides to go get them and be on his way, but the girl begs him not to open the door because there are zombies outside. Yuan reassures her that there were no zombies when he came in, but just as if summoned by fate, a zombie appears outside as soon as he opens the door. The creature immediately charges toward the girl at full speed, its hunger uncontrollable. However, since Yuan is standing between them, he shoves the monster away, unintentionally sending it flying through the air. The zombie crashes into the glass window with a deafening smash, sliding across the floor like a rag doll. The power behind the push astonishes both Yuan and the girl. Neither of them understands where that strength came from. Yuan, realizing just how powerful that push was, feels a wave of confusion wash over him. The zombie that took the brunt of the attack is down for the count. The girl, equally stunned, looks at him in disbelief. The scene pans out, revealing the full extent of the zombie's flight, through the glass window and about 15 feet away. Yuan claims he definitely pushed the zombie with all his strength, but he didn't expect to knock it out like that. That's when he notices something else. Throughout all his time running around, there hasn't been a single zombie that tried to attack him. The girl then questions him about the secret behind his immense strength, calling him a jushi, a term in Korean used to address middle-aged men. Yuan doesn't like the sound of that at all. He's only 28 years old, and the thought of being seen as a creepy middle-aged man feels incredibly unfair. He remembers that he was supposed to grab a power bank, so he heads to the general goods section. Later, after charging his phone, he calls his sister Nuna, but gets no response. Terror fills him as he realizes he might be too late to save her. The image of Minhee and Nuna flashes before his eyes, and tears well up, but he quickly snaps out of it. He can't be sure of anything yet. It's possible her phone just died, and she's hiding somewhere waiting for help. Once again, he steels himself, and decides to venture outside to find them. But before he can leave, he needs to figure out something with the girl. He asks if she has a phone, and she confirms that hers is dead. Yuan promptly offers her a power bank and suggests she call her parents. A while later, she managed to connect with her mother, and tears fill her eyes as she speaks, quickly reassuring her mother about her well-being and current whereabouts. Her mother, relieved, is happy to know she's alive. The daughter also makes sure to attribute her well-being to Yuan, the Jushi who helped her. Yuan is again annoyed at being called a creepy middle-aged man, but before he can complain, the girl's mother warns her not to come back home. She hangs up, leaving the poor daughter in tears. After the call, the girl continues to sob uncontrollably, her shoulders shaking with each tear. Seeing how desperate and helpless she looks, Yuan decides to help her. He suggests that she tag along with him, and he will help her get home. Just then, their attention is caught by the commotion outside. More zombies have gathered inside the store. The girl starts to cower, realizing that escaping is no longer an option. Yuan acknowledges that they won't be able to get out unless he takes care of the threat outside. He rummages through the store's supplies and creates a temporary weapon to defend an attack. Before leaving the storeroom, he sternly instructs the girl not to open the door under any circumstances. Yuan assures her he will be back soon. The girl pleads with him not to go, but he shuts the door in her face, determined to face the zombies outside. The air outside is thick with tension, and the night is eerily quiet, except for the faint sounds of groaning zombies. He steps into the chaos, weapon in hand, ready to confront the menace. After a brief but intense struggle, Yuan returns, confident and triumphant. He reassures her that everything is taken care of, and seeing him stand there so assured causes the girl's face to light up with immense astonishment. She hesitates for a moment, then asks if he's okay. Yuan affirms that he is. While he wasn't sure before, after fighting off those zombies, he's pretty damn confident he's in good shape. Most importantly, he points out that the zombies don't seem to attack him to devour him, an observation that has become unsettling but useful. Later, Yuan enters a nearby garment shop. The shelves are empty of customers, but clothes hang lifelessly on display. He picks out some fresh clothes for himself. After changing, he feels a bit more like a person again, stepping out of the store into the now familiar desolation. As if luck is on his side, he spots a heavy bike parked on the other side of the road. The sleek beauty of the bike catches his eye, almost as if it's inviting him to ride. The allure of its power and the promise of escape are too strong to ignore. When we return to the convenience store, the girl is also changing into the clothes Yuan brought for her. There's an awkwardness in the air, but a sense of calm washes over them, as the immediate danger subsides. Yuan apologizes, saying that he didn't know much about women's clothing, so he just picked out whatever he thought might work. He looks at the shelves and, noticing the absence of zombies, decides to gather some food supplies before they leave. As they move through the aisles, Yuan spots a baseball bat and grabs it, the solid wood comforting in his hands. The girl expresses concern, her voice quivering slightly. She wonders why he's putting his life at risk, just to keep her safe. They are literal strangers, and she doesn't understand why he's helping her. She assumes that, being an ajushi, he must have a family to protect. First of all, Yuan can't help but make a creepy face when she calls him ajushi again. Second, he reassures her that she shouldn't feel guilty. It's natural for someone to be in desperate need of help, and he's sure that someday he might need help too. Above all, since the zombies don't seem to bite him, there's no real threat to his life. The moon is shining brightly, casting a soft, almost peaceful light over the zombies that roam mindlessly beneath it. Their serenity is soon disrupted by the loud vroom of a 700C engine. The one behind the handlebars, of course, is Yuan, riding the beautiful bike. Though he's making quite a bit of noise, the zombies don't immediately react. Likely his presence is overshadowing the girl sitting behind him. With the road ahead clear, he hopes to reach Nuna as soon as possible and rescue her from this nightmare. We cut to a gas station where, inside a tucked-away shop, a man is hiding from the zombies. The bottle he's holding is his last source of water, and he knows doom is soon to follow. He curses his rotten luck for being stuck in this shop, which has already been looted. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle catches his attention, and he believes there might be survivors nearby. What's worse is that the sound is getting closer. Eventually, the noise halts right outside the tuck shop at the gas station. Seeing the rider of the bike casually stop in the middle of the monster-infested area, the man inside starts to lose his mind. It may not be a great idea, but he decides to take a life-risking chance and calls out to them. His worries are soon unfounded, however, as Yuan is already taking down the mindless zombies one by one. With just a single hit, each monster is down for the count. As Yuan clears the path, the man in the tuck shop can hardly believe his eyes. Suddenly, a zombie sneaks up behind Yuan. The man shouts a warning to him, but Yuan just takes 2 steps back. The zombie zips past him as if he's invisible. The sight leaves the man in the tuck shop in utter disbelief. Meanwhile, as the zombie is about to reach the girl behind the bike, Yuan swings his bat with such force that the zombie flies through the air like a rag doll. With the area cleared, Yuan tells the girl to rest, assured. As for the man stuck in the tuck shop, he can only stare in complete astonishment at Yuan. If his eyes aren't fooling him, what he saw clearly proves that zombies weren't even trying to bite Yuan at all. Yuan proceeds to walk toward the fuel dispenser to fill up the motorcycle, since the road ahead will be long, but the duo is startled when the middle-aged man finally emerges from the tuck shop. Excitement bubbles inside him. He's absolutely certain that the person in front of him is something beyond ordinary, a savior in the apocalypse. Drinking water as if he's never had anything better in his life, the man remarks that he's glad to have quenched his thirst. Curious, Yuan asks him how long he's been hiding. Turns out it's only been 3 days. Though the man wasn't expecting the convenience store to be completely looted and empty, he's a little hopeful now that he's met survivors. In an effort to better their relationship, he introduces himself as Kim Guido, a 32-year-old journalist who no longer cares about his job because the world has gone to hell. The girl introduces herself as Park Gina, a 20-year-old freshman at her university. Finally, there's Yuan, who appears to be 28. He's reluctant to explain that he's a mortician. Or well, used to be. Guido remarks that Yuan doesn't look like one at all. For some reason, Gina is staring at him, a detail Yuan calls into question. It's actually because the girl is surprised that this guy didn't turn out to be some old, grizzled man. Guido learns how the two of them came together, a string of events that led them to the convenience store. Yuan admits that it's a little weird. They never even exchanged names until now. Guido understands, acknowledging that both of them experienced real horror being trapped here. For now, he's curious about something that's been bothering him. Yuan's strange ability to be immune, or invisible to zombies. Outside, the hordes of the undead are gargling and searching for fresh blood, but Yuan's ability to stay untouched is still a mystery. Yuan tells his story of how he was knocked unconscious for 5 days inside the morgue and only came to learn about the apocalypse after waking up. The most he recalls is getting sick before blacking out. Guido is carefully noting down the details, confirming that Yuan escaped the hospital and found Gina shortly afterward. They both confirm that neither knows about the catastrophic events that took place, which Guido considers a blessing. Mortified, Gina asks why, and Guido explains that the entire planet was reduced to a zombie wasteland, with the first 2 days being carnage. Normal people quickly turned into flesh-eating zombies, and most of them died without understanding what had happened. The truly horrifying part is that they were hunted by their closest loved ones, not knowing what had gotten into them. Gina, overwhelmed by the details, begins to cry. Guido apologizes for being too graphic, assuring her that her family must be okay, especially after receiving the phone call. He reassures her they will meet again, though her words are filled with doubt. As the conversation continues, Yuan is curious about Guido's story. Guido shares that being a journalist means little to him now. He was working on a case to uncover the cause of the apocalypse, and his investigation led him to being stranded after running out of gas. He's invested in knowing the truth about the zombie outbreak, but when Yuan inquires further, Guido shifts his focus to something more pressing. The minute he turns to his left, he's terrified to see a group of zombies lashing out against the window. The sight terrifies the entire group, especially since they can't exit the gas station without becoming zombie food. Yuan believes they should step on the gas and get the hell out before they're swarmed. Since they can't use the bike in this instance, he asks about Guido's car, parked a few minutes away on the roadside. Their only shot at getting to the car is if they can get past the zombies outside. Yuan arms himself with a club and decides to play the hero. He declares he'll clear a path while Guido and Gina block the door for him. It seems like a reckless idea to Guido, especially since Yuan will be risking his life, but Yuan reassures them that he'll be fine. He's got no zombies to worry about biting him. Turning to Gina with a gentle smile, he promises to take her home, just like he said. Taking a deep breath, Yuan steps outside, ready for the 1 versus 50 showdown. Gina musters up the courage to tell him that he should just refer to her by her name, since their age gap isn't too far. Hearing that, Yuan smiles and says her name before going to face the threat. The zombies outside weren't expecting it, but one human really did just make a superhero's entry. He faces them with a determined glare, and as he begins to fight, he declares that he won't let a single one of them get inside. The zombies scream as one human beats the crap out of them, slamming them into the walls. Yuan doesn't care for the process or understanding why the zombies don't attack him. He stands firm in his mission to stop them from coming inside. Watching from the window, Guido is on high alert, unable to believe his eyes. His observation is clear. The zombies don't recognize Yuan at all. But there's also the terrifying strength he's displaying, tearing through zombies with ease. As the fight continues, Yuan's stamina begins to wane, and he starts feeling hungry again. It's the same feeling he had when he first woke up, like not having eaten for days. Bashing zombies left and right, Yuan concludes that he'd probably feel a lot better after clearing the horde and consuming a proper meal. The sight of Gina struck with incomprehensible terror causes Yuan to drop to his knees. He's bewildered, confused, and breathless, his mind swirling with unanswered questions. He doesn't know what happened just now, or why he's suddenly overcome with such an unsettling feeling. All he can think of at that moment is Gina, her fear, her vulnerability. In the distance, the horde of undead shuffles aimlessly, their groans echoing through the streets. For a brief moment, Yuan's vision blurs, and the sensation of hunger creeps through him like a dark, suffocating wave. Here's the jaw-dropping kicker. Yuan is actually experiencing a severe temptation to eat a human. His mind spins, and for the first time, he wonders if he's truly no different from the zombies that surround them. The thought unsettles him, but it almost makes sense why the zombies don't recognize his presence. He's become something in between, something unnatural. Meanwhile, Gina is deeply worried. She wants to help him, but Guido, ever the pragmatist, tells her it's reckless to get involved. While they argue, Yuan regains his composure and rises, his face hardened with determination. He continues mowing down the horde, swinging his bat with brutal force, taking down as many zombies as he possibly can. The sound of shattering skulls fills the air, punctuating each hit with a sickening crack. As the last of the zombies falls, Yuan crushes the face of a particularly stubborn one into the ground. Unfortunately, by the end of his fiery outburst, Yuan is left panting, exhausted, and shaken. His heart races in his chest, and a deep, gnawing hunger claws at his insides. This is bad, he knows it, and even Guido can sense the change in the air. The protagonist, confused and conflicted, tries to assure himself that he's different from the zombies. He's human, isn't he? That's what he wants to believe. But his eyes, now gleaming with a red spirit, betray him. Yuan declares that he will never stoop so low as to become a monster like them. Miraculously, the temptation fades after a long drink of water. His throat is dry, but the flood of liquid helps ground him. If only for a moment. Yuan drank a ton of water. He needed it, after the amount of zombies he took down single-handedly. Gina, still worried, asks if he's hurt. He reassures her that he's physically fine, though Guido, ever the realist, acknowledges that killing so many zombies isn't easy, both physically and mentally. But something darker looms in Yuan's mind. The intense hunger that gnaws at him is replaced by a gut-wrenching pain in his stomach. It's as if his body is rejecting everything he's just fought for. Trying to focus on the task at hand, Yuan suggests they use Guido's car as their safest escape route. The area around them is hazardous, but he knows they can find a gas can to refuel. He insists that they move together. Going alone in this environment would be madness. Suddenly, a man appears from the chaos, screaming for help. Luckily, he hadn't been reduced to scraps by the zombies earlier. Yuan notices this man seems genuine, a faint glimmer of hope in his desperate cry. But there's a catch. His friend is grievously injured and on the brink of death. The situation is tricky, especially in an apocalypse where trust is a rare commodity. Yuan contemplates his options carefully, while Guido remains skeptical. He advises caution as they can't afford to let their guard down. Gina, however, argues that they should help, despite the risk. She believes in kindness, even in the face of danger. After a brief moment of hesitation, Yuan agrees with her approach, no matter how naive it may seem. Guido reluctantly gives in, agreeing to help if they're all comfortable with it. Gina opens the lock and welcomes the two men inside, offering them water to revive them. The two newcomers are grateful but wary, grateful for the chance to survive, but hiding something behind their eyes. Gina asks about their situation, but Guido, suspicious, immediately questions whether the injured man had been bitten by a zombie. The chubbier fellow panics, hastily denying any visible wounds. Another one of the men speculates that the friend should have turned by now if he'd been bitten. Still, Guido remains skeptical. He presses them about their plan to survive, only to discover that these men have no real strategy, just a vague hope to find help for their friend. The journalist's doubt grows, but Gina, in a burst of frustration, snaps at him. She insists that they focus on helping these men, who are in immediate danger. It's only thanks to Yuan's consideration that they're still alive. The sweating man, grateful for their generosity, thanks them profusely. Guido, though, admits that he might have been too harsh in his judgment. Turning to Yuan, the journalist asks if the car they're talking about is an SUV, which would fit all five of them comfortably. Yuan nods, but he has other plans. He wants to scout ahead and find a motorcycle, so he can lead the group and find safer locations for them. It's a smart strategy. He knows they can't stay in one place forever. Guido agrees with the idea, and they decide to refuel the car as quickly as possible. Gina promises to look after the injured man, while they retrieve the car. As they leave, though, the men inside are already plotting their betrayal. They've been scheming all along, using their injury as a ploy to get inside and take advantage of the situation. Cut to Yuan and Guido arriving at the car's location. They refuel it quickly, but Yuan can't help but wonder why the journalist is so opposed to trusting these new strangers. Guido explains that his gut is telling him not to trust them. His experiences over the past few days have left him cynical and wary. Yuan, intrigued, asks why Guido trusted them at all. The journalist shrugs, admitting that he was on the verge of insanity from dehydration and had no choice but to cling to the hope of survival. Curious, Yuan asks about the term scoop, which Guido used to describe him. The journalist explains that he got lucky by finding a guy who is literally immune to the zombie apocalypse. At this, Yuan's stomach grumbles loudly, a reminder of the hunger gnawing at him. It's no surprise, considering the number of zombies he's fought and the exhaustion that's finally catching up with him. He laughs it off, but it's clear he's in desperate need of sustenance. Before they can leave, however, a strange feeling creeps up on Yuan. As he turns around, frozen in place, he hears something other than zombies. His instincts kick in, and he's sure he's heard Gina's voice. Back at the gas station, Gina screams, pleading to be let go. She's been seized by the men who had pretended to be in need, now holding her hostage. One of them places a barrel of a gun against her head, blackmailing her by saying her screaming will attract the zombies. Gina freezes in terror, and the man who pretended to be sick reveals his true nature. Overjoyed, he reveals that he plans to kill Yuan and Guido as soon as they return, with Gina serving as their perfect hostage. In a flash of rage, Yuan appears out of nowhere, bashing the man's head with his bat. He knocks the bastard flying like a rag doll. The sight of Gina's pitiful condition fills him with an uncontrollable fury. He stands there, his expression twisted into one of rage and determination. Guido arrives, too late to stop the violence, but relieved to see Gina. He helps her into the car, where she is safe, though deeply shaken. Yuan turns his attention to the two men who had planned to betray them. The chubby man, clearly terrified, tries to defend himself with a gun, but Yuan doesn't hesitate. With a single move, he destroys him and devours his flesh, his hunger now fully realized. His actions are brutal, merciless, and horrifying. Guido, hearing the gunshot, rushes out of the car only to find Yuan standing there, the sole survivor of the brutal confrontation. Worried, he asks if Yuan is okay. But Yuan only asks about Gina's condition. She's asleep in the car, recovering from her ordeal. It's a small comfort, but it reassures Guido. The tension in the air is palpable. Yuan has become something else, something monstrous, yet still human. And the world around them, filled with danger and deception, is only growing darker. But Gideon is wondering why he changed his clothes. Yuan hands him the gun he retrieved from the clowns. It's a great thing to have in this damn apocalypse, so the journalist is happy also. He's more than willing to trust Gideon's intuition from now on, showing that he's adapting to his mistakes, unlike a fudge ton of protagonists and their naive optimism. The wind howls outside, a cold reminder of the world they now live in, but the atmosphere inside the building is tense and still. Worried, the journalist asks if he's really okay, or if something happened pretending to be normal. Yi Huan shoots him a smile, masking his feelings in pain as he checks on the bike. The room is dimly lit, with shadows creeping along the cracked walls. It's finally time for them to get the hell out of here. After all, Guido doesn't know what the hell happened inside, but he chooses not to think too hard. The rain taps lightly against the windows, adding to the oppressive silence in the air. It's time for the group to leave, so they head off during their ride, the tires crunching against the gravel road beneath them. Gina reawakens, only to find herself surprised that she's in a car with a journalist. The car smells faintly of sweat and gasoline, the windows streaked with dirt. She doesn't know what happened, but Guido promises that they dealt with the manipulative assholes who tried to take advantage of them. Also, Yuan is determined not to leave her side and plans to be extra protective of her. The silence inside the car is broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional distant rumble of thunder. Hearing that, Gina cries, holding her face in tears. It causes Gideon to worry that she might have gotten hurt somewhere. She ponders why those people, the same people they tried to help, took advantage of them. They had noble intentions. The air feels heavy, as though the weight of her words is pressing on everyone. And yet, instead of looking to survive together, those guys instilled a permanent despairing feeling in her heart, causing her trust issues with anyone she's now going to meet. It's not a good feeling, and Guido understands, but he gives her the words she needs to hear, on the bright side. The car's headlights illuminate the road ahead, casting long shadows that stretch in all directions. He wants her to fully trust Yuan, even if she doesn't trust anyone else, as he's more than willing to protect her no matter what happens. Let me pause for a moment and break down the significance of the scene where Yuan gave the journalist the gun. The wind outside howls louder, rattling the windows, emphasizing the bleakness of their situation. It's actually because he doesn't trust himself and wants Guido to handle him in case he spirals out of control. Okay, going back into the story, Yuan and his group clear the area inside a building with every last one downed. Their footsteps echo through the empty halls, the once welcoming space now a graveyard of memories. Our boy wants to take his friends to the room he saw, but his eyes darted to a picture frame of a loving family. The picture is dusty, the frame cracked, a stark reminder of what has been lost. He almost forgot these zombies were once real people, and apologizes for having killed the father anyway. The sound of the wind outside presses against the walls of the building. He secured 2 rooms for his group. There's not much for them to worry about anymore, but he's confused why the journalist wanted them to stay the night, especially since they've got a travel vehicle now and all. The dim light flickers above them, casting an eerie glow. It's because Giddy wanted them to rest from all the exhaustion, as traveling in the daytime would be safer. To top it off, it's imperative for Gina to get all the rest she needs. The air feels colder now, the weight of the world pressing in on them. Worried, Yuan asks if she'll be all right. It's not looking bright because she's endured a severe mental scar from this experience, halting her ability to trust anyone anymore. The darkness outside seems to close in around them, like a suffocating blanket. It's a hopeless feeling, and it's really sad. how some traumatic experiences can corrupt a person's view of the world for the rest of their lives. But the journalist argues that it's necessary for Yuan to play his role well here since she doesn't trust anyone anymore. She will only rely on someone like Yuan, the man who saved her and protected her time and time again. The room feels smaller now, the silence thick with tension. Yuan doesn't really want to step into those shoes and expresses that it's literally their first day together. But the journalist argues that they've been through a lot of shit for one day, which is also true anyway. The second reason he wanted to locate a place to rest is because of Yuan himself. As he's a reporter, he's been meaning to ask him a bunch of things. The air feels heavy in the room. The faint buzz of an old fan, the only sound. The first question is why the zombies don't see his presence. Of course, our boy doesn't know the answer to that question, but he strongly believes that they don't recognize him at all. The journalist enters a contemplative state, wondering what kind of explanation could help describe the cause. Since it's their first day together, they don't know much, but Guido wants him to keep him updated in case Yi Huan discovers something new about his condition. The next question is whether or not our boy has dabbled in sports or martial arts before. The question comes across strange to Yi Huan, who denies any such thing because that's the one thing that really surprised the journalist, his monstrous strength, as he was casually picking up zombies and slamming them into walls and pavements, like they were nothing. The sound of crickets chirping outside the window provides an eerie contrast to the intensity inside. The journalist declares that it's almost as if he isn't even human, a phrase that makes Yuan coil into fear. The stillness in the room amplifies his unease. Guido understands that even Yeguan is clueless about his condition. To disengage from the serious topic, the journalist apologizes for asking so much out of the guy right after he saved their lives. Also, Yuan's quest to find his sister is still up in the air. He wants to check their home to see how she's doing, since his sister is located in Yangyang, and that place is pretty far away from here. There's no telling if they'll be able to make the transport. The sunlight streaming through the cracks in the wall highlights the uncertainty in his eyes. Still, despite the odds and the difficulties presented in front of him, Yehuan wants to do everything in his power to help save his sister. The journalist strongly opposes the idea because the place is far away, and there's no need for him to be so reckless. The shadows of the room seem to close in on him. Yehuan doesn't understand why either, though he senses that it's just the right thing to do, no matter how hard hearing those words. Gina appears to be awake, her eyes filled with tears, moved by Yehuan's honesty. The quiet hum of the car outside fills the space between them. Guido thinks the guy is a bit too nice, and it only makes sense why Gina trusts him unconditionally. Journaling his thoughts on paper, Guido wants to conclude the conversation with one question. He wants to know if Yuhuan has sensed any specific patterns about the zombies, just about any kind of information that could help them in the long run. Scratching his head in confusion, Yuan replies that he doesn't know anything meaningful. He believes their senses are still intact, but that theory is also inconsistent because it doesn't add up why zombies can tell the difference between humans and one of their own. Surprising them with her sudden entry, Gina drops a bombshell. The zombies are actually attracted to exposed skin, as per the words of her manager, who hid in the storage room before being attacked. The wind is picking up outside, rattling the windows. Guido is worried that she's up early, but Gina sits down after failing to fall asleep for a while. Also, she apologizes to our boy for making him needlessly worried, reassuring him that she's better now anyway. The tension in the room eases a bit, though the danger outside remains ever present. Guido is curious about her words and asks for more. Gina explains that the zombies are drawn to exposed skin, which is also why she asked for longer pants back at the store. The troubled reporter is even more confused than before, realizing that they've got much to work with here. In any case, it's best for them to look for gloves to cover more of their skin. The faint sounds of groaning zombies can be heard outside, their presence a constant reminder of the danger they're in. Gina actually ends up finding a functioning radio nearby. The transmission from the radio mentions the 6th day of the virus outbreak, marking how life continues to be threatened by the apocalypse. Gina can't believe that the radio is actually functioning at this time. The broadcast is live, reporting the 5 days of the apocalypse. Yuhuan and Guido are shocked to find the channel still functioning, which means the station must be safe. But Yejuan believes that they might be trapped inside the station instead. This may seem more like a distress signal instead of an actual broadcast. The wind whips through the trees outside, carrying a sense of unease. Well, Gina knows the station is nearby, so Guido recommends they leave it in the hands of Yehuan, who should make the ultimate call. After all, he's the only one among them capable of navigating inside the station. Still, Yehuan strongly believes that finding Gina's parents is more of a priority, and he's fine with reconsidering their options after that. Seeing him stand up for her so many times, Gina feels relieved. The journalist is okay with that thought and suggests they all take some rest. The stillness in the air provides a brief respite from the chaos outside. In the next scene, we get a dream sequence where our boy is bolting away from the zombies in fear. They're slowly getting to him. And in the end, all he can do is brace himself for the pain to come. Yiwan snaps out of it and sees Jinmin's body appear before his eyes. The world around him is distorted, the lines between reality and nightmare blurring. It's clearly shocking because he's not supposed to be alive. It makes him wonder if the whole zombie apocalypse thing was a dream to begin with. But then Bro's life turns to shit as a horde of zombies savor on a human's flesh, giving him more nightmares to think about. Jinmin invites his buddy to go along and eat with them, as he's supposed to like human flesh, and his face looks like something out of a horror movie. The sound of gnawing fills the air, an eerie reminder of the horror surrounding him. Imagine your best buddy covered in blood like that and inviting you to eat human flesh. Scary, right? Yuen finally awakens, his breath panting and his eyes full of horror. Daylight hits the edge of his bed, and peace eventually sets in. The light filters through the cracks in the walls, a reminder that despite the horrors, the world is still turning. His hands still tremble from the experience as he collects his thoughts, reinforcing himself once more that he'll never turn out to be like the zombies. The scene cuts to a different location, where a couple is resting on their bed, having freshly run out of food to eat. The room is quiet, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards. Instead of worrying about their own health, they're even more worried about their daughter, Gina. They're hoping she was rescued by a reliable person. The poor mother just wants to see her daughter a second time, and they embrace their demise as there's nothing they can do. Suddenly, Gina's father is drawn to a sound that wakes him up. The sharp noise of a motorcycle engine breaks the silence of the night, a brief flash of hope in their hearts. To his surprise, the bike stopped around. The zombies are mangling about, so this decision seems reckless to Gina's parents because they don't know about Yuen. With special powers, he safely comes to the exact location Gina described. But there's no signs of human life so far. He entertains the idea of neutralizing the horde before expanding their search. So our boy uses his trusty metal bat to knock the ever-living crap out of one of them. The scene leaves Gina's parents at a loss for words. They are seeing one dude just destroy zombies without any trouble. It makes them wonder what kind of person he is. With the path cleared, Yuhuan looks around and realizes why Gidu's car can't make it this deep into the city without clearance. So now he wants to scout his surroundings to investigate more. The landscape around them is desolate, filled with wreckage and broken buildings. Yuhuan ends up walking in the direction of their house, hopping over the wall. They're afraid of going out and trusting a complete stranger until suddenly Yuhuan addresses them and asks for confirmation of Gina's parents. Both of them come rushing to welcome him after hearing their daughter's name. They're so caught up that it startles even Yuen for a second. Fast forwarding to Gina finally getting a chance to embrace her parents, the family goes for a happy reunion. Seeing them get back together, Yuen's face lights up, relieved that he was able to fulfill his promise. Unfortunately, Gidu has to remind them to do this inside, as it's still unsafe out here. The atmosphere outside feels colder, the oppressive silence lingering. Gina's father grabs his hand, thanking them dearly for taking care of their daughter. Of course, the journalist doesn't want to take any credit and tells them it was all Yuan's doing. They head inside at last. The atmosphere inside feels a little warmer, a safe haven amid the chaos outside. Gina's parents explain how they were lucky and how they managed to create multiple blockades against the zombies to ensure their survival. The air feels tense, filled with gratitude and relief. Unfortunately, being trapped inside expired their resources, and they did everything to search for their daughter. Luckily, they have her back now, so they're extremely grateful to the two men that helped her. But Guido explains that it's all thanks to Yuan, who has been taking care of things for them. Wen learns that they didn't step foot outside for 6 days. The power went out, but thankfully water was working fine, and that's how they survived. Well, there wasn't any food left to eat, so they were practically starving to death at this rate. Juan realizes he has to do something about their situation and remembers riding past a supermarket down the road. The shutters were down, which means the supermarket probably has a boatload of resources inside, making it a good way for them to stack up on resources. He has to ensure their survival, so he's going to go outside. But Gina's father is against the idea as he would be risking his life for them. Even then, Yuen believes they can't survive without the basic human resource. Plus, they haven't eaten anything for 2 days, and he can't just glance over them. The room feels heavy with the weight of their decision. Agreeing with the idea, Guido pitches in, stating that they should prioritize survival as anything could happen with the way things are going. Gina's father musters up the resolve to help our boy, but of course Yehuan wouldn't want to risk something like that, so he turns him down and tells him to focus on Gina's condition first. Hearing that, Gina's father is reduced to a mess. There's nothing more endearing like a man worried for his family. Well, Yehuan takes off. Guido intends to come along with him to manage the food. Following Gina's theory, he's got himself covered completely and wants to help Yu Huang by being useful instead of acting as a burden. That's a good thing for the protagonist, who's got a dependable ally to work with. They say their goodbyes to the family and ride away. Of course, Gina's family is worried, but she's hella confident in our boy's survival ability and believes Yu Huang will always return. At the supermarket, the two of them crack open the locks and lift the shutter, exposing an untouched stash of valuables for them to steal. The air inside the supermarket is stale, and the shelves are eerily silent. It's a miracle to find a supermarket like this in such an apocalypse with so much to use. Yi Huan and Gidu are confident the family can easily survive for a few years with this much stuff. They get busy collecting what they need, and the scene transitions to the NBS headquarters. Here, a worried man talks to someone on the phone. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, giving the room an unsettling feel. Unfortunately, he's stuck handling the daily broadcast and has to follow strict instructions. Suddenly, he hears a sudden message from the other side telling him about important information. When the call ends, the guy is left questioning the purpose behind the messages being broadcasted among his jaded thoughts. He has recently come to know of a bike rider, whose identity is unknown to him. Yuan and Gideo acquired what they needed the most. Also, they use this chance as an opportunity to grab a bunch of medicines from the pharmacy as well. All of a sudden, the journalist is feeling the crushing weight of stealing from stores. Still, it's too late for them to be worrying about meaningless things like that when the world is destroyed. The flickering candlelight casts shadows on the cracked walls, highlighting their exhaustion and the grim reality they face. Since looting the store is going to take a bit, Yuan is on guard duty, especially since medicines need to be carefully checked before being taken. The night feels heavy, the air thick with tension. The MBS headquarters is just up ahead, and Yuan is busy staring at it, his gaze fixed and distant. He recalls the broadcast was from the same radio, which means Gina was correct about it being close by. Guido thinks it would be unwise to worry about the broadcast at this time, especially since they have to take care of Gina's family first and focus on finding his sister. The dim light from the street lamps flickers as the wind picks up, causing the trees to sway. Guido tells him to just give it up for now and focus on more pertinent matters. Though reluctant, Yuan understands that he has to find his sister as soon as possible, especially since she stopped responding to his messages. Fast-forwarding back to Gina's family, they share an excellent meal, revitalizing themselves after being completely drained for 2 days. The smell of freshly cooked food fills the room, a rare comfort in this desolate world. The family is so grateful that he's done so much for them, as all of this should last the four of them a minimum of 6 months. Unfortunately, he won't be staying since he has to go find his sister. Gina's family is worried, and her mother asks about his sister's location. The warmth of the meal contrasts with the cold, abandoned world outside. Whoa, did I just drop a Five Nights at Freddy's reference? Anyway, Bro's sister lives really far away, so it's not going to be easy. Ewan understands that, but he has to save his one and only family he has left. Hearing that, Gina sits in silence, understanding his pain, though he has one more request. After saving his sister, our boy wants to bring her back to Gina's family, which makes her feel flustered. The fire crackles softly in the corner, providing the only source of warmth. Ewan strongly believes that this is the safest place among all, and it's not like his sister has important connections of her own to worry about in these times. Since the zombies can't bite him, he'll be of great use to them anyway. He just wants to make sure Gina is safe, and he's willing to do anything for that. That's why he promises to return with his sister and help them out even more. Of course, Gina's family can't even decline a request like this, but they do have one strong objection. Gina's father is out here having a temper tantrum because Bro thinks our boy wants to steal his daughter. Even the mom catches on, but she's more supportive than anything. Can't believe they're thinking about grandkids when they're in the middle of a damn apocalypse. At night, they have to manage their way with candles. There's no power, after all. The air inside feels heavy. The only sounds are the crackling of the fire and the occasional howl of wind outside. Yewan learns that Gina's parents are fast asleep. They continue on their nightly talks. The soft glow of the candles flickers as Gidu, calculating his thoughts, wonders how much food they'll have to take to get to Yangyang for 2 people. Hearing that, Yewan remarks in confusion, especially when the journalist admits that he's coming along to help our boy. The cold night air seeps through the cracks in the windows, a constant reminder of the danger lurking outside. It seems like a ridiculous idea to abandon a safe location like this. But Gidu understands the risks. It's just that he's always been part of a risky job. He's just dying to know more about Yuan, and that's why he's sticking to him like a persistent bug. Bro's gonna use him to make a name for himself. But it really makes me laugh because it's not like anyone's gonna be caring about fame in a zombie apocalypse, right? Gidu reminds him of Yehuan's own words, who boldly said that he'd trust the journalist's words from now on, promising not to be a burden. The fire's light casts an eerie glow across their faces as the tension rises. The journalist assures him that they'll be fine. Also, since he's traveled a lot as a journalist, he knows all the ways to handle safe navigation. Yuan is okay with that, so Gina gives them one last thing to go along their journey. It's actually the radio that she picked up from the building. It's going to be useful in learning about new information around the area, even though Giddy is a bit skeptical on that front. Yuan is startled when the radio suddenly pops open a new transmission. The radio crackles and a voice breaks through, sharp and clear. The transmission talks about the confirmed reports of multiple witnesses from around the area. The center of attention is a man who is immune to the undead, someone famously dubbed as the Motorcycle Man. As the broadcast sinks in, Gidu quickly catches on that the radio is probably talking about our boy. The reporter further continues about this mysterious motorcycle man who was first sighted in Incheon, then Bucheon, Gangsuk, and Hwagok. All say this guy is heading straight for the heart of Seoul. The tension in the room builds as Yuan's heart skips a beat. That's the man who doesn't get hit by the infected. Maybe he's the solution to all their problems, clinging to hope in the middle of all this mayhem? He initiates the MBS midday radio. Meanwhile, Yi Huan, sitting next to Blondie on the couch, looks shaken like he wasn't expecting to hear that. The walls around them feel closer now, the air thick with anticipation. RJ continues, saying that a man who gets no darn effect on him if attacked by the infected, that news isn't something he bought at first, and who would broadcast this bullcrap? He says he has gotten some complaints telling him not to give people false hope. But even though he is stuck in this broadcast studio, he keeps it going just to send even the tiniest spark of hope to the survivors listening. The lot stuck in the endless rut of despair and loneliness. He wants to let them know that giving up isn't an option. The room is heavy with silence, the faint hum of the radio amplifying the tension. He has faith that hope will never die and that salvation will come to pass. That's MBS Radio's producer coming live, Sun Jinsol. The trio listening to Jinsol looks straight up stunned by all this. Meanwhile, Jinsol throws on a track to lighten the mood, a soothing song for troubled hearts worn out from all the despair. The soft tune fills the room, but it doesn't bring much comfort. Leaning back like a dead weight, RJ looks completely drained. Even after preaching hope on the radio, he doesn't seem to believe in it himself. With a worrisome fact, he has no clue how much longer he can keep up this life. The weight of the world seems to press down on him, a stark contrast to the warmth of the room they're in. Back at the house, the trio just sits there, totally speechless. No one has even said a word in minutes. Then Guido breaks the silence, confirming if the RJ called himself Sun Jin Sol, the PD from MBS. Yuan tends to ask if Guido knows the guy. Reaching for his pocket, Guido mumbles under his breath, upon having Jin Sol's number somewhere. The dim light from the candle flickers as he finally finds it. So he definitely met the guy at the Radio Current Affairs Department. What's wild, though, is that he is starting to think Jin Sol might be running the whole station solo. Aside from that, Yuan checks with Gidu to see if the radio place is still taking reports for the broadcast. The air feels cold and tense, the crackling of the fire the only sound. Gido is sure they are still doing it. No doubt, after taking it all in, Yuan finally speaks up, ready to claim that he is the motorcycle guy. This big confession drop of this guy blows their minds. No doubt he straight up admits that the truth is zombies don't bite him, but he still has no clue why. Despite everything, Yuan, having a long face, didn't want to give people false hope. He feels like he doesn't deserve to pull this stunt. However, Gidu tries to understand his side of the view, but suggests the guy try taking caution at something that could endanger his life, especially when he is living in a world where trusting anyone is the act of a fool. In Guido's view, if this guy exposed his identity, he's definitely screwed. But Yi Huan feels like stuff like that doesn't really matter. The fire's glow reflects off his face as he flashes a grin, feeling strangely carefree. He straight up says that exposing his identity isn't a big deal, especially in a world like this. Still, he tells them to take a chill pill, swearing that he will be as careful as possible so there won't be anything to worry about. The warmth of the fire contrasts with the cold, oppressive world outside. Sighing aloud, Guido gives away the green flag, finally letting Yuan do his thing. Afterwards, Guido decides to hook Yuan up with that broadcast guy. After all, he is somewhat tight with the PD personally. Moreover, he is sure that the PD will only buy his story if he vouches for him. For that, Yuan is really grateful to Guido for his non-stop support till now. Ringing the call to the MBS Sun Jinsol, Guido claims to be Kim Guido, asking if he's in the middle of the broadcast. Jinsol can't believe his ears upon hearing the voice of journalist Kim Guido. The sudden burst of noise from the radio feels like a jolt to the room. Feeling relieved, he goes ahead and asks if Guido is in a safe spot right now. Guido admits to being in a safe situation. Brushing it off, he gets to the real thing. That's when he confesses to keeping intel that needs reporting. Without wasting time, Giddy drops a big hint, saying the motorcycle guy from the broadcast might just be his colleague. Spilling that out, Guido and Yehuan look at each other for a moment, but Jinsol practically jumps out of his seat. The dude can't handle this bombshell, asking if he's really speaking the truth, right? Then he flinches as this grave news breaks out. He trembles like a shaky leaf, struggling to make sense of it all. Snapping out of it, Jinsol hurries over to the radio system. He apologized to the audience, claiming to have gotten a major tip-off urgently. So he decides to cut the transmission with this last song. Back to the call, Jinsol can only hope Guido's words of wisdom hold true. With reports about the motorcycle guy coming in now and then, there's a lot of uncertainty. Some true, some just rumors. When asked, Guido didn't even hesitate. He was ready to stake his name on it, just like any true journalist would. That takes Jinsol by surprise, whose eyes pop out of his socket in shock. Taking a look back, Guido, fighting through the crowd, calls back to the Humpty Dumpty-looking chairman at the part of his unfair appointment. Guido demands an explanation from the chairman. In his journaling days, Guido, shivering in the cold, awaited the explanation, but he never got the chance. Now Jinsol is ready to buy Guido's truth, confirming if his colleague is still with him. That said, Guido signals Yijuan, and he then joins the call, claiming to be the motorcycle guy. This mere voice stuns Jinsol for a moment. Keeping it cool, he has got his list of questions ready, ones he needs answers to. Meanwhile, the lot from every corner of the world hears RJ Jinsol stating that the motorcycle guy actually holds great importance for his listeners. He knows that everyone has fallen into the pit of despair, and for them, just knowing someone out there can't be bitten by the infected, that alone is their last shred of hope. Without further ado, Sun Jinsol asks Yihuan if it's all true, and that's when he verbally confesses to being immune to the infected. However, the reason is still unknown. Furthermore, he goes on to say that the infected don't seem to notice him at all. They don't get aggressive and barely react to his voice, like he is not even here. Jinsol notes it all down. After a sudden pause, Yuen says he still isn't the kind of hope Jinsol is looking for. Yeah, he's helped some people with this ability, but he's got his own limits too. That's that. Jinsol decides to pass only the verifying intel, even if Guido has vouched for him. Moreover, he demands to see any evidence proving his immunity to the infected. Yuan asks Jinsol if the area around MBS is swarming with the infected. That sends chills down Jinsol's spine. Yuan confirms that he's coming there himself the same night. Jinsol is having a hard time buying Yuan's gutsy claims. Jinsol demands to know if he will be daring to come solo for real. With eyes filled with determination, he declares that that's the only condition for making Jinsol believe his story. Then he's down to taking the risk for it. That's enough to freak Jinsol out, but his RJ protocol wouldn't let him bend the rules of passing the intel without verification. Thus, he is expecting Yahuan to come by MBS, as it wouldn't trouble him if the infected doesn't give a damn about him. Then he drops his current whereabouts, residing inside MBS Broadcasting Station, concurrent on the 8th floor, second studio from the end of the right hallway. Jinsol warns this hi-fi immunity claimant that his station is practically overrun by the infected mafia. However, Yihuan, unfazed, still sets their meeting time for tomorrow, as this guy doesn't care whatsoever. After this, Jinsol redirects to journalist Guido, saying that he never imagined hearing his voice in times like these. Thus, he wishes that Guido take good care of himself. To ease the PD's troubled mind, Guido assured him that they would find him soon. And just like that, the call ends. The infected's radar doesn't sense Yuan at all. Not to mention he is completely immune to their mess. And they won't bite him no matter what. The thought seems too surreal for Jinsol to process, yet his mind keeps wandering, questioning what if it's all true. The air in the small, cramped room feels thick, the silence oppressive. Letting it all sink in, Jinsol realizes Yuan isn't just hope, but he might be salvation itself. The walls around him seem to close in, and for the first time in days, a faint spark of hope flickers inside him. The next day, Yihuan's prep is all set, telling Guido that outside is wide open, clear as day, and not a single zombie near his car. The morning light filters in through the windows, casting long shadows across the room, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Gearing up, Guido is pretty much ready for this heist. Right then, Gina's mother comes down to hand over Yihuan some homemade rice balls. She believes that it's going to be a rough and tough ride, so it's good to have something. The smell of warm rice balls fills the air, a rare moment of comfort in an otherwise bleak world. The dude practically jumps in excitement to notice a pile of rice balls packed in the box for him. After thanking her a big time, he promises to eat it all, just like that. This woman warns Yuhuan to be extra careful and bring back his sister in one piece because they will definitely be waiting for them. The soft hum of the wind outside feels almost like an omen, a reminder of the dangers that lie ahead. Just as Yihuan steps out, Gina rushes out to get his attention. At a loss for words, she couldn't meet his eyes. The tension between them is thick, the weight of unspoken feelings hanging in the air. He assures Blondie that there's nothing to worry about, as zombies wouldn't dare mess with him. However, her emotions go wild, and before she knows it, she is wrapping Yuhuan in a tight hug that catches him off guard. The warmth of her embrace is like a fleeting moment of normalcy in a chaotic world. But this cutie couldn't help but thank Yihuan for everything. But she wants this guy to return at all costs. Turning as red as a tomato, Yi Huan tells her not to worry, as he fully intends to return safely. Out of nowhere, Guido feels the ick, dismissing this union. The dude rants that dating is all fine, but marriage can't be far too rushed. The cold, biting wind outside seeps through the walls, a stark contrast to the warmth of the moment. Feeling utterly disgusted at this old fool, they make horrible faces at him, showing their annoyance. Afterward, Yi Huan heads out while the people behind hope for their safe return. Hours later, Yi Juan and Guido get to the crazy zone, infested with zombies. The air smells stale, as if the world itself has stopped breathing. With Guido packed and secure in the car, the immunized Yuan, bat in hand, scored good hits at those brainless dum-dums. One savage hit catches the attention of other zombies who couldn't help turning to look. The distant groans of the undead echo in the empty streets, as if mocking their every step. Having a close inspection, Yuan speculates that if they don't take down this swarm, this whole area will be a pain in the head. The wind picks up, carrying the faint scent of decay. Not only that, he believes it will become much more dangerous to find shelter in this chaos. Guido understands where he is coming from and tends to let Yi Juan handle this one, although Yuan, taking a sigh, knows that it ain't an easy task, but he doesn't have any choice left. Gripping his bat, this big shot warns the brainless army that he got to pass through by all means. Inside, Sun Jinsol is close to passing out due to extreme weakness. The walls around him feel like they're closing in, the oppressive silence making it harder to breathe. Dumped in the corner, Jinsol feels like his body is giving out. Whatever strength is left of him, he thinks to have reached his limit. The dust in the air feels thick, choking, as if even the world itself is giving up. Any more of this, and he is done with this life. Nothing to drink or eat, his supplies have run out long ago, so he resorts to waiting for his death. By the looks of his health, today's broadcast doesn't seem like a possibility now. Still, he feels even worse for not leaving a farewell message in yesterday's broadcast. The fading light from the broken windows gives the room a haunting quality. If only he knew things would sink this low. Even more so, Jinsol anticipated this much to happen like this, but he would have one lasting regret. He still desires to confirm the truth behind the motorcycle man. The silence around him presses in, and he feels dizzy like he's one step from the stairway to heaven. Jinsol thinks it's a damn shame to go out without satisfying his curiosity. All of a sudden, Jinsol's phone flashes a ring that catches his attention. His breath catches in his throat as he answers it, his hand shaking. As it turns out, that's his fellow journalist, Kim Guido. Without missing a beat, he grabs his phone to answer quickly. The speaker blows a concerned voice, and Guido demands to know if Jinsol is still doing okay. The tension on the other end of the line feels almost palpable. And just like that, Guido finally gets an answer, as Jinsol confirms to be doing fine for now. Sighing in relief, Guido lets him know to hang in there as they are surely not so late. This hint spikes his curiosity and also passes a chill down his spine. The cold sweat running down his neck matches the chill in his bones. Sweating bullets like crazy, he straight up questions Guido, asking his current whereabouts. Without further ado, Guido calmly lets him know that they successfully arrived at the MBS building. The shock hits Jinsol like a physical blow, and he can hardly believe what he's hearing. He can't believe those fools actually made it to the MBS building. The world outside feels distant, like a dream he can't wake up from. Even then, he warns the idiots that the entrance is infested with zombies, making it impossible to let anyone pass through. To ease his mind, Guido initiates a video call routine with Jinsol. The screen flickers as Jinsol's eyes widen in disbelief. Just as Guido gets him on FaceTime, Jinsol's mind gets blown away to witness the atrocious acts of motorcycle guy yanking the zombies away. He takes notice of the infected getting slammed away, crushed by a bat, only to carve a path straight to the entrance. The sound of the bat meeting flesh echoes in the empty streets, sharp and unsettling. That man alone is being a total menace to wipe them out. Guido explains that if he stepped outside, he would be 1 second from death. But in the case of Yuan, the guy is built differently. Sun Jinsol bears witness to seeing Motorcycle Man, true to his words. The world outside feels a little less bleak as he watches Yuan, the beacon of hope, carving through the undead. He sees the first guy who isn't a zombie's preferred menu. No bite from the brainless rot makes him the face of hope. After wiping them out, Yu Huan's head zones out with endless thoughts. The weight of it all settles in his chest, and the distant sound of the undead seems to haunt him. This all occupies his head, haunted by the trauma of butchering countless people. After a momentary pause, he gives away the green flag for Guido, saying that it's safe to step out now. The air outside feels heavy with anticipation. And then Guido comes out, believing that it's all for real, so he stands by his wise words to set the record straight. He states that the broadcasting station would remain a hellhole if someone like Yi Huan didn't take a step to disinfect it. Only he got the chance to enter the MBS building. Just then, Yuhuan spots a police shield lying around useless. The metallic glint of the shield catches his eye, and he moves quickly to grab something useful. He hands the police shield over to Gidu, saying it will definitely come in handy. No doubt Gidu feels the same way. The silence around them feels oppressive, a stark contrast to the action outside. Moving ahead, Yuhuan is sure of butting into many more brainless duds inside. Thus, he gives a piece of advice Guido's way, that his best chance of surviving this is by sticking closer to him. With that, he wouldn't have a problem living another day. Guido remembers the inside of the MBS building is nothing short of a labyrinth for the newbies. But thanks to Giddy's familiarity with this place, he gets to be the guide who knows the radio station's layout. The smell of dust and old equipment fills the air as they make their way through the hallways. Thus, he wishes to be their navigator in this assignment. And just like that, these two brave fools make their way inside. Walking inside, mostly it's all vacant, luckily. The creak of their footsteps echoes in the empty hall, a reminder of the desolation that has taken over. Wherever these two patrol, Yuhuan, with the baseball bat as his weapon of choice, checks out another room, but it's steered clear of any survivors or zombies. The room is dark, with only the faint glow from their flashlights cutting through the gloom. That surprises Gato, but he feels something's off. Climbing up, Gato has this unsettling feeling bubbling in his chest, which is forcing him to keep a lookout, head turning every other second. The dude mutters that this kind of silence just doesn't feel right. Then he tends to ask Yuhuan if everyone just bolted when the incident went down. At first, Yuhuan's mind races countless thoughts to cook a reason for it. However, he ends up coming up with a question instead. Without wasting time, he asks Guido why Jinsal is so determined to keep the broadcast going. The silence between them feels heavier now, filled with the weight of the question. Although he gets the idea that regardless of his situation, that all must be really tough for him. But even then, why must he keep the broadcast going? Giving it a thought, Guido probably thinks it's his sense of responsibility as an informant. After all his years of working at the broadcasting station, he kept providing all kinds of info, even at these dire times. Guido believes that Jinsal wishes to keep doing what's in his power, like a sense of duty to mankind. The faint sound of groaning zombies in the distance feels like an ever-present reminder of the dangers they face. Yuen thinks the work Guido and Jinsal do as journalists are seriously impressive, which catches Guido off guard. As a couple of journalists, they didn't seem to lose their sense of duty, and kept collecting intel to make sense of the situation, and in many ways, probably trying to resolve the situation. Besides that, Yuen feels like there's nothing he can really do as a mortician, which makes him feel kind of pathetic. The weight of his thoughts presses on him. But just then, Guido hits him with the shield, which almost pops his eyeballs out. The metallic clang rings through the hall, breaking the tension. He asks Guido what's the fuss, but Guido claims this hit on Gina's name. He believes that Gina would have done the same thing if she saw Yehuan's loser self resurfacing. Without a doubt, Guido comes up with a question, asking Yehuan, who is the person that can comfortably exist without so much care in this world? The question hangs in the air, a poignant reminder of everything they've lost, and the fragile thread of hope they're all clinging to. Cutting to the chase, Gideon spits out fairly that Yehuan has a million chances to look for his way out. He's capable of focusing his will on any task he chooses. Even then, he bluntly chose to rescue Gina, himself, and their family. At this moment, Guido sharply argues that Yehuan is going above and beyond to protect PD. Ginshul, too. It's a feat only Yehuan can pull off, though the true motive driving him remains a mystery. That said, Guido insists it's a choice he made, because it's the right thing to do. Beyond that, this world is rotten with malicious intent, not only from those fighting to survive or the thugs who harassed Gina at the gas station as a prime case, but even in this broken reality, Yehuan intervenes out of sheer kindness. What's so pathetic about that? Guido swears no one else on Earth has risen to the occasion like Yehuan has. So far, that does the trick, and Yehuan thanks Guido for this thumbs up. Arriving at the 8th floor, the two quirky companions gear up for the confrontation ahead. Carefully sneaking in, they enter the silenced corridor that luckily runs vacant too. Toward the left side of the corridor, the second door marks the threshold to Studio 6. Guido plans to call Jinshul, oblivious to what's about to hit them in mere seconds. A ravenous, infected creature lunges forward, aiming to sink its teeth into Guido as he turns his head. Gideon freaks out as his soul jumps out of his skin in pure terror. In the nick of time, Yuen pulls Gideon aside, sending the boy tumbling through the air like a projectile. But to their darned luck, that zombie bites the wrong guy. Chaos erupts, and Guido yells in distress, terrified for Yuhuan, who's now a victim of the zombie's bite. Right then, he lands a savage blow to knock the zombie out of the way. Overwhelmed, the young man can't fathom that he's been bitten by the infected. Guido is practically losing his mind at this moment. Yijuan is at a loss, unsure of what's coming next, and fearing he might transform too. He tends to ask Guido if he is still keeping that gun with him. Guido's composure crumbles rapidly, sweat pouring off him as he struggles to grasp the gravity of the situation. Gidu goes from zero to existential dread pretty fast. It takes him ages to wrap his head around what Yuan is hinting at. Sweating bullets, he demands to know what Yuan has in mind. But Yuan is eager to end this quickly. Bursting into Studio 6 inside, he finds the same zombie he knocked down moments before. Shaking at the ghastly scene, he resolves not to sink to their level and become one of them. Thus, he decides to do his best until he loses his mind. At the same time, a woman, trembling uncontrollably, breaks free of her zombie-like trance and pleads with Yuan to stop. That isn't in the cards. Yuan's eyes grow wide in disbelief as he watches a zombie revert to human form. Yuan stands face to face with this anomaly while Gidu watches it all go down from outside the room. Sobbing hysterically, she implores Yuan to spare her life. She pleads for a chance to prove her innocence, insisting she hasn't done anything. Completely baffled, Gidu questions whether she's truly infected. However, Yuan can't ignore the truth that she jumped at him to attack and bite him. If she's not infected, then why did she attack him like that? Along with momentary silence, the room fills with the woman's sobs. That's when Yuan resolves to get her out of this dangerous spot and head to the studio first. The sight sends a jolt of terror through Gidu's mind, practically paralyzing this dude out of fear as Yuan decides to take the biter with them. He convinces the terrified Gidu that she's not infected, so they can't abandon her here. He makes up his mind to think it over after reaching a much safer place. While grappling with this reckless plan, Guido spots something strange on Yuan's bitten hand. As it turns out, the wound heals in a matter of seconds. This stunning discovery strikes him like a thunderbolt. On the other hand, Ginshell, probably lifeless or drawing on his last reserves, lies in the corner in wait of his rescuers. He's almost certain he hears noises close by, leaving him curious about what's happening. That's when Gideon's call alert catches him off guard, so he picks right up, asking if they are all right. Gideon confirms with certainty that Ginshell is indeed in Studio 6. Without further ado, Gideon requests Ginshell to open the door as he is at the entrance, completely thrown off. Gido quickly assures him with a nod, confirming no infected are nearby. He tends to question if Gideon is actually there, and whether the area around him is safe. As Gido swings the door open, he glances back at Yuan, who's soothing the now recovered infected woman. Jinchul and the former zombie dig into Gina's homemade rice balls like they haven't eaten in 3 days. Gido acknowledges Jinchul's effort, praising him for single-handedly keeping the broadcast alive for a week amidst the chaos of starvation. Yuan tells the lads to calm down as there is enough for them. Jinxiao admits he's already satisfied, having stumbled upon some food here earlier. He figures that compared to the woman who went a full week starving, he's still in a much better spot. Gulping down water and devouring the food at a rapid pace, she finally pauses to catch her breath. Just then, she thanks her heroes for saving her life. Yijuan shrugs it off casually, while Gidu verifies that her name is Choi Sujin. When asked, Sujin admits to working at the department store. Suddenly, Jin Xiao presses her about what she recalls first after the chaos hit. It turns out Sujin was heading to MD for a broadcasting sponsorship when everything suddenly went haywire in the hallway. Abruptly, shrieks erupted throughout the station, assaulting her from all sides. Sensing something was off, she did her best to run, but luck wasn't on her side. Fleeing as fast as she could, she unfortunately ran straight into a group of zombies. They tore into her, dragging her into darkness. As she recounts the ordeal, her eyes brim with tears. Letting her calm down, they slip into a 2-minute silence routine. Thinking back, she says she heard 2 voices, which instantly stuns Ye Yuan and Gideon. The sounds started faintly, she explains, growing louder over time, soon accompanied by the metallic taste of blood. Panic sets in as Sujin bets that it felt strangely strong. The memory remains sharp, etched into her mind as if it happened moments ago. Looking back, the memory is still so vivid in her mind. Noticing how these famished survivors haven't had a chance to rest, Aiwan opts to shift this discussion to a more comfortable setting later. It lingers on her lips, as if it just happened. For now, they give her some much-needed time to recuperate. Gidu confirms that she lunged at him, but bit Yehuan instead, only to transform back into a human moments later. Seeing how these hungry folks hadn't even had a moment to breathe, Yuan decides to continue this conversation in a better setting. Intrigued, Jinchil marvels at the revelation that this woman was once a zombie. For now, they let the woman get some well-needed rest. Not to mention, Yuan's arm, which took the bite hard, didn't turn infected, and of course the wound healed itself like it was never even there. Jinchil accepts it fully, needing no further proof after witnessing Yuan's extraordinary resistance to the infection. Nothing else can surprise him. Jinsal proposes it might be an airborne pathogen turning people into zombies, since the root of the crisis remains unknown. Rather, this whole situation gets him thinking about a new hypothesis, since the real cause of the crisis still hasn't come out yet. Gido counters by asking why they remain unaffected. Even the government couldn't keep up, and martial law turned out to be completely useless. Ginchol suggests they could be naturally immune, their bodies resisting the airborne strain. Jinsol thinks of the possibility that it's an airborne virus turning people into zombies. This idea shakes them to their core. Gaido tends to ask why they haven't been affected. Even if they're safe from the air, a bite's blood or saliva transmission should still turn them. Yet Yewan defies this. To counter this question, Ginchol paints quite a picture that they are primary immune bodies with resistance to airborne infection. Jinshan theorizes Yewan has total immunity, making him untouchable. This whole theory kind of blows their minds. When Sujin bit him, tasting his blood, it inexplicably reverted her to human. Even if their immunity only worked against airborne infection, the easy transmission through blood or saliva, like a bite, could still turn them into zombies. Jinshao boldly claims Yuan isn't just immune, he might be a living cure. In the case of Yewan, Jinshan formalizes the theory of full-body immunity, making Yewan the safest dude in the world. Yuan freezes, grappling with the weight of what he's just heard. Thus, when Sujin tasted Yewan's blood during the bite, it somehow turned her back into a human. San Genshiol, watching closely, cautions that it's still just a hypothesis, though it fits what they've observed. This whole explanation now points straight at Yehuan. Giddy urges them to pause and reflect carefully, as jumping to conclusions in this mess could backfire. Jinshel declares that Yehuan might not just be completely immune, but a walking, talking vaccine. Reviewing everything step by step is the only way forward. Yehuan stands still, trying to understand what he just heard. They revisit the moment Sujin, fully zombified, bit Yehuan. By all logic, he should have turned. Yet he didn't. The idea of being a vaccine seems impossible, yet everything that has happened makes him rethink it. His blood could be the key to halting the infection, a notion too wild to dismiss. His mind keeps going back to the events leading up to this moment, searching for an explanation. When she bit him, his blood entered her system and reversed her condition almost instantly. Afterward, San Genshiol, who has been observing the situation carefully, explains that it is only a theory. A virus shouldn't vanish that fast, but the evidence is undeniable. However, based on what they have seen, it makes the most sense. It might explain why the infected never target him. His blood isn't just immune, it's a cure. Giddy steps in, suggesting they slow down and think things through. Even a drop seems to undo the infection, suggesting Yewan isn't merely resistant but could stop it entirely. The situation is complicated, and rushing to conclusions won't help. His blood might be humanity's salvation. Going over everything properly is the only way to understand what is happening. If true, his parents might not have been lost. There could have been a chance to save them. Afterward, they recall the moment when Sujin, already turned into a zombie, bit Yehuan. This hits Yuan hard, forcing him to reconsider every infected he's fought. By all known rules of the infection, he should have changed as well, yet he stands there completely unaffected. He wasn't just surviving, he might have ended lives that could have been spared. Yuan's blood might be the cure to stop the infection. Gidu reassures him that his actions kept others alive, and survival demands hard calls. The idea seems impossible, but given the situation, it can't be ignored. They've encountered all sorts, some humans worse than zombies, proving the virus isn't the only threat. When Sujin, already turned into an infected, bit him, his blood somehow entered her mouth. No one faults Yu Huan. He only protects, never harms. Instead of making things worse, it cured her almost instantly. Instead of debating, they resolved to test the truth. Normally, a virus shouldn't be neutralized that quickly, but the results speak for themselves. They suggest showcasing Yuan on that night's radio broadcast to see if he's truly the cure. If this theory holds, it would also explain why the infected never attacked him. Juan hesitates at the thought of going live, wary of addressing a crowd. It's not just immunity. His blood itself acts as a vaccine. Later, he video calls Gina, sharing how they want him on air. Even the smallest amount is enough to reverse the infection. He doubts he's as unique as they think, and fears sparking false hope. This means Yewan isn't just resistant to the virus. He might be the only person capable of stopping it. However, Gina assures him that in this world, no one is more remarkable than him. She gently encourages him, noting that Yuan's sister could be tuned into the broadcast, urging him to give it his all. He appreciates the support and thanks them. Realizing his battery is running low, he vows to catch up with them later. But before hanging up, he asks Gina to send his regards to her parents. After the call ends, Sujin playfully ribs him, asking if that was his girlfriend, though he's quick to shut down the idea. But the other person isn't convinced, pointing out that she sounded like she thinks he's really special. Guido jumps in, adding to his embarrassment, teasing Yi Huan that even Gina's parents seem convinced they're a couple, so denying it is futile. Sun Jinchul asks if Yu Huan got some rest, mentioning that everything is set up and it's time to prepare. Sir chuckles, reassuring him that slip-ups hardly matter in times like these. But Yuan hesitates, worried about messing up during the live broadcast. After the pep talk, Sun Jin-shul, the radio host, kicks off the broadcast, thanking listeners for their overwhelming messages of support and concern. Despite the scarcity of data and electricity, people still take the time to reach out, and he expresses gratitude for their kindness. To give back, he announces a special guest, the first ever on the show. He presents the enigmatic figure who's sparked hope amid despair. Dubbed the Motorcycle Man, Kang Yi-hwan now live on air. Afterwards, the radio host asks Kang Yi-hwan to introduce himself to the listeners. Yi-hwan is nervous but determined. Taking a moment, he shares his name and age, disclosing his job as a funeral mortician. The host notes they've received numerous reports about Yi-hwan, and though some need confirmation, one question stands out above the rest. He asks if it is true that the infected do not attack him. After a brief pause, Yuan confirms that the reports are indeed true and explains that the infected neither bite nor attack him. They barely acknowledge his presence. The host confesses it's hard to believe and admits he doubted it initially. However, after witnessing it himself multiple times, he can no longer deny the truth. The host then mentions reports suggesting Yi Juan has been traveling east and asks if he has a specific destination. Yi Juan confirms that he does. He reveals he's bound for Yongyang in Gangwon province, seeking his family, determined to reunite despite the perilous journey. The host remarks that Yongyang is a long way off and ponders if any listeners are in the area. Suddenly, a report comes in from a listener in Saocho, a nearby area. The unexpected message catches everyone's attention. The host reveals that the listener also evacuated from Yangyang to Sokcho. According to them, the military has already passed through Yangyang, leaving nothing behind. Yuan processes the news, realizing that his journey might have been for nothing and that his family's fate remains uncertain. Yuan is trying to process the possibility that Yangyang might be completely gone. Gadu, equally shaken, wonders if the military truly razed the entire place. Afterwards, the host steps in to provide clarification, explaining that according to available reports, the military did take action in Yongyang. Still, the meaning of nothing left remains vague. It might imply no survivors or just the infected being wiped out. The uncertainty leaves Yuan anxious, unsure if his family is still alive or if he has been chasing a lost cause. The host stresses they need more facts before jumping to conclusions. Any additional details about the situation in Yangyang would help clarify what really happened. The producer confirms that the military acted when the crisis first broke out, immediately declaring martial law. Yet their efforts faltered soon after, with reports showing them pulling back from cities, causing gridlock and chaos. However, after that initial response, their movements have been limited. Yongyang might be an outlier, hinting at something unique compared to elsewhere. The host suggests that the military might have evacuated the survivors in Yongyang, placing them in a safer situation. He urges Yuan to keep hope alive. Moreover, he encourages Yuan to hold on to hope. Yuan recalls how his sister adored the radio since they were kids, listening together to fill their quiet home with life. Afterwards, Yuan reflects on his sister's love for the radio since childhood. She believed it made their quiet home feel more alive and less lonely. If she's out there, she's surely tuned in right now, just like old times. They always listened together, finding comfort in its presence. No matter what's become of Yuan declares his mission unchanged. He's going to find her. If she is safe, there's no doubt she's listening to this broadcast right now, just as she always did, before everything changed. He tells her to stay resilient and wait for him, vowing to reach her no matter the odds. Yuan remains determined, stating that no matter what has happened to Yongyang, it doesn't change his goal, and he's going there to find his sister. The host praises Yuan's grit and thanks him for inspiring others. Moreover, if she is listening to the broadcast, he wants her to stay strong and hold on a little longer, and he promises that he will come for her no matter what. Guido ribs him, saying he started shaky but found his footing, joking he might have missed his calling. The host shares that many listeners have sent supportive messages, thanking Yuan for giving them courage. Yuan brushes it off, but Guido insists he'd better get comfy with the spotlight. Once this blows over, the media will be all over him, maybe even making him a worldwide name. Afterwards, Guido teases him and says he was nervous at first, but adjusted quickly, joking that he might have chosen the wrong career. The lady pauses before asking why he didn't mention her cure on air, thinking it could have lifted spirits. Yuan quickly denies it, to which Guido advises him to get used to broadcasting because once things settle, the media will want to interview him. The host explains he omitted it to protect Yuan, revealing his blood's power might paint him as a hero or savior, but the fallout could be heavier than he's prepared for. He might even become a global star. If word spreads, he might not just be hailed as a hero, but treated like a commodity, exploited under the pretense of saving humanity. Afterwards, the lady hesitates before asking a question, but the host encourages her to speak. Another agrees, warning that in this mess, neither the military nor government can be trusted. Finding his sister comes first. She wonders why he didn't mention her cure during the broadcast, believing it could have given listeners hope. Hello, hello, we're starting another video about the guy Yuan. Yuan nods, opting to scout the station more thoroughly, keeping his secret close. The host admits he left it out for Yuan's sake. Guido offers him a cleaned weapon as he heads out. If people knew his blood could heal the infected, they might just see him as a hero or a savior. Yuan wonders if it's necessary for a quick check, but Gideon presses him to take it, stressing caution over complacency, especially now. While that sounds ideal, things might not be so simple, because the weight of such a thing could bring unexpected consequences, ones Yi Juan might not be ready to face. He takes the advice, grateful, and sets off to continue his quest. Moreover, the host explains that if the truth about Yi Juan's blood spreads, he might not be seen as just a hero, but as a resource. Gidu marvels at how Yuan's kindness shines despite his youth, though it could falter in this harsh world. Under the guise of helping humanity, he could end up as nothing more than a test subject. Guido explains that at 28, Yuan's gentle nature is both his gift and his vulnerability, facing countless trials ahead. Another person agrees, acknowledging the possibility and urging Yijuan to keep it a secret. The host agrees Yuan thrives thanks to those around him. Without them, Yang would be out of reach. With the current situation, trusting the military or the government isn't an option. Guido pledges to stick by Yuan, not just for the story, but to see him through. The priority should be rescuing his sister. Sujin, listening nearby, timidly voices her wish to join them, catching Guido off guard with her sudden resolve. Yuan understands and decides to check the broadcasting station more thoroughly. Before he leaves, Guido hands him a cleaned weapon. Afterwards, Guido hesitates for a moment before addressing Sujin's request. He pauses, questioning whether she has a personal tie to Yang that's driving her decision. To which Sujin explains that she was shocked when she heard about Yang's situation on the radio. She reveals the military unit involved isn't just any random group. It's deeply personal to her. Her father is the commander of the 4th Armored Brigade stationed there. Guido probes further, asking if her father is the deputy commander of that brigade. Before proceeding further into the story, let's take a glimpse into our boy's past. Sujin confirms he's Colonel Cho Yun-chul, once based in Cheorwan, now reassigned to Yang last year. There, we see an elderly woman who goes by the name L. Her family relocated to Yang, though she remained in Seoul for her job. Right now, she feels guilty about accepting help and money Juan's sister is willing to offer, but Juan's sister gently reassures her that it's no burden, just a little kindness. Guido reflects that her life must have turned upside down in mere days without warning. She hopes this woman wholeheartedly has a nice meal with her grandkids, and skipping meals isn't an option. He suspects she feels secure with Yuan, and likely wants to join them for that reason. Elle thanks her endlessly for this. Guido's thoughts shift suddenly. Colonel Choi Young-chul rings a bell. He recalls the name from his time in Cheorwan until last year. A few moments later, given her struggles to pay for lunch, Yuan asks his sister why she gave the money away. Jinchul muses that letting Sujin come along might not be a bad idea, given the military's grip on Yang. She just brushes it off, saying she's got enough cash to buy an old lady lunch. He reckons it's probably the 4th Armored Brigade locking down the area, barring civilians, except Sujin's connection to the commander's family changes everything. She also mentions Elle climbs this hill every week or so to pick up trash and papers. Jinchul adds that in times like these, the military base might be the only safe haven. Even though it's kind of pointless, she does it anyway. Still, reaching Yang won't be easy. It'll demand careful strategy to navigate the hordes of infected, likely taking longer than anticipated. That's what she calls a sense of true, unseen goodwill, the mere reasons that hold humanity together. Sujin speaks up, voicing her longing to see her family again. This leads her to dream that one day, Yi Huan will carry the same goodwill forward. They agree to hash out the details once Yi Huan gets back. So she asks if he will, ending the trip to memory lane. Yi Huan listens to Sujin's story and checks if she's joining them, unbothered by her tagging along, since her family's in Yang too. Alone on a bench, lost in thoughts of the past, he stares at his last messages to big sister Li Che with unwinding sadness. Guido gives Yi Huan a dose of reality, reminding him they're not heading to Yang for a getaway. Later on, Guido tends to ask if Miss Sujan's father is the deputy commander of the 4th Armored Brigade. Yuan, munching on rice balls, acknowledges the dangers but insists family takes priority in times like these. Sujin reveals that he is Colonel Cho Yun-chul, previously stationed in Cheorwan but reassigned to Yang last year. He adds he's going to Yang for his sister, a sentiment Sujin connects with, hoping she won't weigh them down. Also, her family moved to Yang, but she stayed in Seoul for work. They turn to Jinchul, asking what's next. Guido considers that her whole world flipped upside down in just a week with no prior notice. He explains that with renewed hope, he'll keep broadcasting from here. Plus, he thinks this woman feels a sense of safety with Yuan and probably desires to come along with them. Jinchul asks if they can relay any info they gather on their way to Yongyang. Just then his mind does a U-turn. He notes that while he gets reports nationwide, details on military bases are scarce. Colonel Choi Young-chul, the name is quite familiar, and he served in Cheowan until last year. Few are making long treks like theirs, and metro areas like Seoul are effectively locked down. Something clicks in his mind. He suspects if the military or government is still operational, they've likely moved bases to rural provinces. Meanwhile, Jinchul thinks about letting Sujin tag along, which isn't so bad considering the military taking control over Yongyang. Jinchul believes broadcasting their trip to Yongyang as a live documentary could uplift his remaining listeners. He believes that it's likely to be the 4th Armored Brigade unit, and that unit is definitely gatekeeping that area. No civilians allowed. He wishes Yuan luck in rescuing his sister and reuniting with her. But in Miss Sujin's case, this civilian has direct links to the executive family of the deputy commander, which makes it a whole different story. Meanwhile, he'll hold the fort and do his part here. Not only that, Jinchul concludes that there isn't any safe place but the military base in moments like these. Yuan offers a faint smile, vowing to come back for him later. Even knowing their path to Yongyang isn't a piece of cake, it requires immense planning to get past the pack of the infected. Guido stocks Jinchul up with enough food for at least a month. It could take longer than expected. Jinchul frets it's risky to part with supplies before their trip, but Guido assures him they'll hit a supermarket to replenish. However, the option to leave still sounds better than staying behind and doing nothing. Yuan confirms the 8th floor is zombie-free, so they're no longer stuck. Sujin breaks the silence, expressing her desire to reunite with her family. Jinchul expresses gratitude to Yuan for saving him in ways beyond the obvious. Thus, they decide to discuss the matters further once Yuan returns. He envisions a day they'll broadcast together again, next time with his sister in tow. Moving on, Yuan hears out Sujin's case, asking if she is coming with them. They clasp hands in a huddle, wishing each other luck before splitting up. He doesn't have any problem with her tagging along, knowing her family's in Yongyang. Jinchul watches the trio depart, left with nothing but hope. Guido hits Yuan with a reality check, telling the dude that they weren't going to Yongyang for vacation. Once outside, Yuan kickstarts his motorbike, taking the lead as Guido and Sujin hop into the car. Gulping down rice balls, Yuan knows the risks are real, but in times like these, family comes first, no doubt. Engines revving, they speed off down the road. Also, he casually mentions traveling to Yongyang because of his sister. Guido trails closely, sticking to Yuan's path. That's something Sujin finds relatable, hoping not to be a burden for them further along. He silently swears to bring Li Che back, so they ask Jinchul what's next. In a room with the door blocked by clutter, Li Cha's daughter sleeps soundly as she whispers for her to hold on, promising Uncle Yuan is on his way. He says now that he's got some hope, he's going to keep broadcasting from here. Their trip hits a snag when the highway turns out to be a graveyard of wrecked, abandoned cars. With that in mind, he asks them if they can share any info they pick up on the way to Yongyang. Even the bike can't weave through the mess, clogging their route. Furthermore, Jinchul mentions getting reports from all over the country, but intel on military bases is rare. Guido knew the trek to Yongyang wouldn't be simple, but he didn't expect this level of chaos. Plus, barely anyone is making long-distance trips like they are. He figures they might need a much longer detour than planned. Jinchul points out that places like Seoul and the metro area are basically shut down. Sujin, map in hand, proposes Route 86, certain it won't be this choked with debris. He figures if the military or government is still up and running, they've probably shifted their bases out to the provinces. Guido agrees it's a solid plan and relays the new route to Yuan. The sight of a family lying dead in front of him makes his heart sink, but he shakes off the feeling and responds to his friend. He helps Sujin up and removes his helmet, introducing himself as Jung Tae-hun. A while later, they arrive at Namyangju Station. As a peace offering, he apologizes again for startling them. There, they encounter a few zombies, which the trio easily takes down with their combined efforts. Yejuan responds courteously, sharing his own name. Afterward, they sit back to prepare some food. Guido arrives, shouting for Yejuan, alerting Jung Tae-hun, who asks how many are in their group. Just like that, night falls, and they take shelter in their car. Yejuan signals 3 with his fingers. Yuhuan stares at his phone. Jung Tae-hyun then abruptly offers them a place to stay. Not luxurious, but better than the open, with enough space for all. He's already sent countless texts to his sister, but there's still no response.